This video is in response to Chapter 1 of The Telltale Brain, entitled Plastic Brains and Phantom Limbs. One thing that I think is really cool about Dr. Ramachandran is that he is first and foremost a medical doctor, which is kind of interesting because when you read, most of the time when you read research papers and things like that, it's done by a PhD. And I think it's interesting that it's not done by a PhD because I enjoy science, but at the same time, I really want to be a doctor and have direct patient contact and make a direct difference in people's lives. And Dr. Ramachandran really does this because he goes into a clinical setting and he really appreciates science and he appreciates simple experiments that really get to the point and help patients. And I didn't really think that simple experiments like that were possible anymore in this day and age of like molecular biology. Everything seems really complicated. But Dr. Ramachandran proves that wrong with several experiments that he discusses in this book. And in this chapter, he talks about two things dealing with phantom limbs and the plasticity of the brain. So with phantom limbs, he found some patients that usually said that they could still feel their phantom limb when people touched other parts of their bodies. So, for example, someone could have an itch on their face and scratch it, and then the itch that they felt on their phantom limb goes away as well. So what he did was he would touch different parts of someone's face, and he eventually found that when someone loses a hand, that he could map it onto their face. So he used this simple experiment to prove that our brains are plastic and that they can rewire themselves into other areas of the brain to make up for what's missing. He also found patients who had phantom limbs that were paralyzed, and it was causing really bad pain because they were cramped in odd positions even though they weren't there. And he used a mirror box to provide visual feedback for these people that their arm was moving even though it wasn't there. So what it did was it showed the box superimposed an image of the hand that they actually had onto the hand that they didn't have, and so they would move it, their actual hand, and then it would look like they had another hand that was moving as well, and that instantly relieved the pain that they were feeling from their cramped arm. And eventually the phantom limb went away because their brain couldn't cope with the fact that they were seeing, they had visual feedback that they had a limb, but no motor or sensory feedback from those nerve endings in a real arm. So he cured not only the cramps and paralysis in a phantom limb, but he made the phantom limb disappear altogether just by doing a simple experiment in a clinical setting and he provided like instant relief for these people. And he said that in his study it worked for all of his patients and it worked for all of the patients in another study. So he's done something remarkable and provided a suggestion for how the brain can rewire itself and how phantom limbs occur in a very simple but remarkable way. And I think that is really fascinating.